Gonna stay in this moment. Gonna lay here on the grass. I don't need to feel lonely. I am finally home at last.
Welcome back to Bound and Unraveled. My name is Christina, and for this week's video, the idea has been kind of sprung upon me because as I was filming the outro to the last video yesterday, I started to feel a bit of a scratch in my throat, and it's official. I have the start of a cold coming on. Now I'm viscerally remembering that the start of the term, everybody's in those congested hallways, those really small classrooms, going to the pub together or whatever, and bringing all of our little germs from our different backgrounds, and now we're all sharing them in the same pool together. So I think this is the classic start of term autumnal cold that, is a hallmark of that campus experience. All of that preamble is to say that we're gonna do comfort reads to cure my cold. So the first thing that we're gonna do is read Raising Hare by Chloe Dalton. This is apparently what emerges when Chloe, a city-dwelling professional with a high-pressure job, finds a newly born hare, endangered, alone, and no bigger than her palm. She's compelled to give it a chance at survival, despite being the least likely caregiver to this wild animal. Raising Hare is the story of their journey together. It chronicles an extraordinary relationship between human and animal, rekindling our sense of awe towards nature and wildlife. Their improbable bond of trust reminds us that the most remarkable experiences, inspiring the most hope, often arise when we least expect them. And I'm going to put Coco in her carrier, and we're going to go outside to a park and read for a little bit as the outing of the day. That's how we're going to start off this video, and then I have a couple of other books lined up. So with that said, I hope that you're doing well, and that regardless, this can be a little balm for whatever you have going on as well. So thanks for joining me in this cozy corner. Let's go start raising Hare. Off we go! Someone's very excited. All right, hi again. I unexpectedly spent most of last night just reading Raising Hare, and I finished it this morning. It wasn't anything exceptional that I had never read before, but it was really lovely. My favorite parts were definitely the descriptions of the hare and of the hare's habits and the way that Chloe Dalton and the hare learn to coexist. And Chloe Dalton does a great job of describing how to have a relationship that isn't attempting to domesticate an animal, but still is one based primarily on trust. And I thought that was really beautifully described, especially the natural instinct to want to try to protect this creature that she comes to care for so much, and then having to restrain that instinct because she knows if she were to lean into that, for example, try to create more barriers so that other animals or predators may not be able to reach the hare, she would inherently be also limiting the hare, and the hare's wildness and freedom are so integral to the hare's quality of life. I really loved how we got to see Chloe Dalton's journey or own personal development in being more present in her life and in the space that she occupies. I think that there is something so magical for us as people existing in this 21st century that's always about multitasking and looking at different screens and going from one thing to the next. We have so much to learn from animals and how obviously they have to be aware of their surroundings and be on the lookout for danger, but also are able to be present. I thought about that a lot this morning when I looked over at my cat, who was just kind of purring and looking at me and enjoying being with me. Sometimes all I need to do is just look back, we don't always need to be doing something else. And the parts that I struggled with a little bit were the more informational parts, because she blends together information about hares, the impacts of agriculture, and I thought that was apt, but sometimes it felt like it was a little bit clunky in how it was weaved together personally, but I did appreciate the call to action. I thought it was really cool how she talked about how hares have this reputation as being kind of cowardly, solitary, kind of similar to cats. Honestly, a lot of what she described reminded me of cats, and I think that's part of why I liked it. as she built trust with the Hare, she was able to see a different side to them, and she was able to see that actually they really enjoy having habits and routines and having their like home space. They're really sensitive to any change to their environment, but they also are really curious and seek out company. And like the Hare, even though she gave it total freedom, would come and sit by her or lay in her living room. And I thought that that was just wonderful, and again, a testament to all of the assumptions that we make about animals and what they have as their inherent nature, just based on how they relate to us as like the big kind of beasts that we are tromping through the woodlands, and that obviously they have a different side to themselves when they're in quiet moments, restful moments, or ones where they can relax. If it sounds like something that might appeal to you and you want to kind of reflect on the hustle and bustle of your life and what it might mean to be a little bit more mindful of the natural world around you, then I think that this will be a good and worthwhile read. The next book that we're going to read is called Autumn, and I thought that was apt. The leaves are starting to change here, and we're going to go to the Royal Botanic Gardens, where I think we'll see even more variety of colors, and I want to try to spend as much time outdoors as possible, noticing how the same trees or the same bushes like change over time with the season. So I thought this would be a good book to get into that headspace. Okay, so the blurb for Autumn, quote, two old friends, Daniel, a centenarian, and Elizabeth, born in 1984, who look to both the future and the past as the United Kingdom stands divided by a historic once-in-a-generation summer. And it's apparently, quote, a luminous meditation on the meaning of richness and harvest and worth. I don't know what to make of that. I'm guessing it'll be a little bit poetic and hopefully nice reading. So come with me and let's go apply some of the wisdom from this book as we start our next one. I'll see you there.
If we keep talking forever, then I don't get where this thing goes. So sick of waiting for nothing, when all I want is to hold you close. And all my stupid friends try to bring me to my senses, but I'd rather be illogical. Recalling you, I can't let go. We had our chances to patch things up again, and I can't believe that you let it slip somehow. So I get a little drunk on a Friday night with my friends, staying up all night so I don't just lay and think about you. It's okay, but I'm all messed up. Don't know what to do to forget about you. So I get woo, yeah, I get woo. The blurry vision is helping when I'm stumbling in the dark. As soon as I'm feeling something, I just take another shot. And all my stupid friends try to bring me to my senses, but I wanna stay this numb tonight so I don't have to think about it. We blew our chances to patch things up again, and I can't believe that you let me go somehow.
Hello, I have finished Autumn, and I could not really tell you what I read. It's definitely the literary fiction persuasion. At its heart, it really is following this friendship between this man, Daniel Gluck, and Elizabeth Demand. And when they meet, he's like 85 and she's tween, and they're neighbors. It accompanies their friendship over the span of, I think, 20 years. But also, we flip from each of their points of view. We go backwards and forwards in each of their own individual timelines to before they met, afterwards, each of their dreams at different points. Sometimes we zoom out entirely and look at like the political landscape. I think that a lot of the action a lot of the story takes place in 2016 around the Brexit referendum. I just really struggled to follow the story and feel like I knew what we were discussing. Even though Autumn is the title, there were really no references to autumn, like as a season. It felt like there were a lot more references to topical events and frankly like other seasons. A lot of it happens, I think, in the summer. So I don't know if it's just like autumn thematically with the themes that are being explored. It was one of those books where I didn't feel smart enough to get it, and that's not a diss on myself. I mean, this book has gotten a lot of praise, so I'm sure that there are people who got a lot out of it. It just wasn't me. So that's fine. It was still a quick read. It only had 3 chapters. The next one I'm hoping will turn things around, and that is You Again by Kate Goldbeck. And this is a rom-com, which I've seen marketed as like the autumnal rom-com. When you see it in color, it's a bunch of like autumn colored leaves in the background. I've actually read the first chapter, so I'm going to try to speak about it off the cuff. It's supposed to be this kind of gender twisted When Harry Met Sally, and it follows our female protagonist, who is a stand-up comedian, living what we would associate with that kind of lifestyle, like subletting an apartment, not a lot of like stability in her life, but she seems to be okay with that and kind of go with it. In her romantic life, she kind of doesn't want anything that requires commitment. She's kind of just like happy to hook up with people and, you know, be on friendly terms, but not expect anything else of one another. And then our male protagonist is kind of the opposite of that. He's totally type A, he's a chef, and he craves commitment and structure. The way that they meet is that they are both sleeping with the same woman. That kind of comes to a head when it becomes apparent and when their paths cross. And apparently, and this isn't the part I've got into yet, what starts as kind of deep distaste for one another evolves into a very platonic friendship that lasts for many years before those lines are blurred. So I've, like I said, just read the first chapter, very much in the strong distaste part of the story. Initially, both characters I'm finding off-putting and not very likable, but I've noticed with a lot of my favorite rom-coms, that's how it starts, where I don't really like the main characters, and then by the end, the author works their magic and I come to care deeply for them. So I'm hoping that that will be the case for this as well. I am feeling quite a bit worse, so I need to get some coursework done today, but I'm really looking forward to bribing myself through with chapters of a rom-com and then spending the evening, hopefully curled up in my bed with lots of tea for my throat and just reading. So that will be You Again, and hopefully this will really ratchet up the levels of comfort for this video. So I will catch you later as we make more progress. Hello! I just finished You Again last night. Up until the 25% mark, like legitimately I looked at my Kindle and it was 22% read. And I was seriously considering DNFing it and just not continuing because I was finding both of our protagonists really unlikable, and I couldn't really see how they were going to manage to meet somewhere in the middle because they were such 2 different shades of unlikable. But somehow Kate Goldbeck really pulled it off. She did such a great job of giving each of these 2 characters an arc. And that was pretty significant. Like, they both did quite a lot of evolving, which allowed me to actually care about them and care about their relationship. I still think that they were the kinds of characters where I was like, oh, in actual life, I would not enjoy your presence that much. I don't think we would vibe. But that actually, I think, is great. And I was thinking about why it is that some of my favorite rom-coms at least start out with characters that I don't like. And I think it's because it makes it that much more impactful when the author makes us then care about them, and it makes it feel a bit more real that they wouldn't immediately gravitate towards one another at the beginning. I came to appreciate them just enough to care about their relationship without completely feeling like what we were presented with at the beginning was just fake or made up. Like, it felt realistic in terms of how much personal growth they each went through. Here was my one minor critique. It's very pop culture heavy in terms of the references that it makes, which I always find can go a tick too far and makes me worry about the longevity of a story, but I think some people really appreciate that. And it also feels very New York. It definitely seems to be referencing what it might be like to live there in your 20s. Anyway, that was You Again. I would recommend it, and again, if you start it and you're really not vibing with the characters, I would recommend trying to push through past the initial quarter, and I think the payoff will be bigger because of seeing where the characters start. So I think our next book is going to be Someone You Can Build a Nest In by Wiswell. I've seen it referenced as kind of a wholesome horror. I chose for this video because I've heard actually is really sweet, even though it's also a bit gross. And you know what? Feeling as gross personally as I do, I'll take that. So here's the blurb. It says, Shasheshan has made a mistake fatal to all monsters. She's fallen in love. Shasheshan is a shapeshifter who happily resides as an amorphous lump at the bottom of a ruined manor. When her rest is interrupted by impolite monster hunters, she constructs a body from the remains of past meals. Badly hurt by the hunters, Shasheshan's nursed back to health by Homily, a warm-hearted human. Homily is kind and would make a great co-parent, an ideal place to lay Shasheshan's eggs so their young can devour Homily from the inside out. But as they grow close, Shasheshan realizes that eating her girlfriend isn't an option. Just as Shasheshan's about to confess her identity, Homily reveals something else. She's hunting a shape-shifting monster that supposedly cursed her family. Shasheshan didn't curse anyone, so now she has to figure out why Homily's twisted family thinks she did. The bigger challenge remains, learning how to build a life with, rather than in, the woman she loves. So I will talk to you later as we start Someone You Can Build a Nest In.
You tell me you're scared. You tell me you're weak, but I know you're stronger than what you think.
Hi there. It has been multiple days. I just finished Someone to Build a Nest In. It is a fantastic book that is not for me. You know, it's all about what does love really mean and what kinds of things can masquerade as love and finding ways to overcome traumatic experiences and like ways that we've been mistreated, and also seeing past other people's coping mechanisms for their own trauma and learning to build something new together. And it has a lot of beautiful messages also just about like what it means to feel monstrous and to be told by society that something at the core of your being is just wrong or not the way it should be. So I really liked a lot of the themes. The relationship between the two main characters is really interesting. It was a little bit insta-lovey for my personal taste, but I think it's because there were so many other things that needed to be explored that made sense that the author maybe chose to fast track that aspect of their time together. All of that, and yet I'm saying it's not for me. The main thing is, I'd heard it described this way and I just didn't pay enough attention to it. This has a lot of body horror. And I thought it would kind of diminish as the story continued, and that did not go away. So what do I mean by body horror for this book? Our protagonist over and over describes the process of her existing and needing to consume other things, and how her sensory reactions to things, her hungers. It was just so many mentions of like fluids and oozing and flesh writhing and organs and egg sacs, and like it just was, I found really consistently repulsive. That's why I say like I think this is actually a great book, and if you're someone who either A, isn't faced by that, or B, actually enjoys it, I would really recommend reading this. It was really quite funny, had some great messages. I just thought pretty consistently disgusted. You know, like my body physically didn't want to be reading the book and to read the words on the page and to like let my imagination go where I was being invited to go. So as a result, I just kind of ended up doing a lot of speed reading, a lot of skimming. Yeah, and unfortunately, I just am not the right reader for it. That was Someone to Build a Nest In. Again, I think definitely has an audience out there. I'm glad it exists, and hopefully it makes its way to the right readers. With that said, I am a little bit sniffly, but overall, I would say no longer actively suffering from a cold. So thank you for joining me for these past couple of weeks on our little reading adventures. I definitely feel like experiencing so many different genres that all had a lot of heart and a lot of like warmth at their core was really nice. And I hope at least one book maybe can be added to your list for a rainy day or whenever you need to pick me up. And that is it for this video. Thank you again for spending the time with me, and I will catch you very soon in the next video. Bye!